first talk about how to automate continuous integration processes to improve the application development cycle. First of all, we're going to see the scenario and the problem that we have to solve. Currently, there is a need for applications development, for software development, to be agile and continuous. Why? Because the world and businesses are constantly changing and growing, and therefore we need the applications development to accompany this rate of change and growth. By that, what I mean is that the software development life cycle must be fast, and it must allow for continuous, high-quality deliveries. To this end, we propose a set of practices that allow for grouping software development with IT operations. Within these practices, there is a fundamental issue, which is the possibility of integrating coding, construction, processes in an automatic way. The adoption of these practices, it was allowed us at GeneXus to release GeneXus upgrades every 2 months and to be always aware of the status of the product. I'm now going to talk about the concepts of DevOps, continuous integration, and how to work with continuous integration pipelines associated with Jenkins, both from the IDE of GeneXus KB and from the web console of a GeneXus Server instance. And we're also going to see what possibilities there are of executing such pipelines in other environments. Let's start with the DevOps concept. What do we understand when we talk about DevOps? We're referring precisely to that set of practices that allow software development to be grouped with IT operations. When determining the processes relating to DevOps, it's essential to be able to determine which tasks allow for speeding up those processes and automating as many of these tasks as possible. For this, it's necessary to work with pipelines. Now, what's a pipeline? A pipeline, always speaking about software development, is a set of processing elements that are arranged in such a way that the output of each of these elements is always the input of the next one. This allows the software delivery to be carried out in different stages, validating the new functionalities in each of these stages and preventing errors from reaching the final user. What do we understand by continuous integration? When we talk about continuous integration, we talk about that fundamental point within DevOps, which is the possibility of integrating the coding, construction, and testing tasks in the processes in an automatic manner. Continuous integration means that the code written by each developer works individually first, then continues working when the final system is integrated, and it keeps on working in the final system as well. The objective then is that the work of the developers is continuously integrating, preventing conflicts from reaching the end user, and in case of detecting a conflict, it is minimal and easy to resolve. Therefore, continuous integration is a fundamental point within the DevOps process. What do I mean by all this? As from GeneXus 17, it is possible to work and define continuous integration pipelines, both from the IDE of a GeneXus KB and from the web console of a GeneXus Server instance. The development is integrated with GeneXus Server, which together with MS Build operations allow automating tasks in software development with continuous integration. Of course, to have all these functionalities, it's necessary to set certain configurations, but you'll find all the step-by-step instructions about how to carry out the installation on our wiki. Before doing a demo, we're going to talk a little bit about the integration of GeneXus with Jenkins. Jenkins is a free open source server that helps automate tasks in software development with continuous integration. When installing the environment, following the steps that I've already mentioned, you can find in our wiki, is where the GeneXus Server connection with Jenkins is defined. This connection, this integration, is what allows a Jenkins server to monitor continuous integration pipelines in the IDE of a GeneXus KB or in a GeneXus Server instance. All right then, let's see a demo now. The first thing we're going to see is how to work with pipelines from the GeneXus Server instance. Then we're going to see how to work with pipelines from the GeneXus IDE KB and what we can see from Jenkins. Let's start with the travel agency KB, which is hosted on our server, and we can see that a new option appears, continuous integration, included into the menu. And from here we can see the list of defined pipelines associated with this KB, and we're going to create a new one. Here we must indicate the name of the KB, which is already instantiated because we're located in that context, the version on which we're going to work. We have to define the environment on which we're going to work, give it a name, give a name to that pipeline, which in this case will be new pipeline, indicate the frequency with which we want it to be executed, for instance, every 8 hours, and the operations that we'll define. We could just say that we're going to do build and a compilation. We can also say that we're going to deploy to cloud, run the tests defined. In this case, we're going to indicate that we're going to do deploy to cloud and run the test defined in the KB. Once this pipeline is created, it appears available on the list, and we can see that it hasn't been executed yet, but we can execute it manually from the run option. We're going to confirm that we're going to execute the test defined in the KB, and the status of the pipeline goes to build. From here then, we are seeing the list of pipelines associated with the travel agency KB, but we can also, from this continuous integration option, see all the defined pipelines associated with the KBs on this server, and even filter them by this option of show only mine. Once we enter this pipeline, we can see that the status has already changed to success. We can see the information we entered when we define it. We can open the associated KB. We can delete the pipeline. We can edit it. We can run the application. This is a result of the deploy to cloud action. And we can go directly to the Jenkins page. Now, what are we going to see here? The status of the pipeline and the possibility of checking each of the steps, what the execution of each of the steps was like. For example, the changes that the KB had when doing build, we are seeing all this in the log that Jenkins generates automatically. We can also see the final result of the build, which as seen has been successful. We can also see the execution of the tests. Let's remember that when we defined this pipeline, we said that we wanted to execute the tests, and on this knowledge base, we have unit tests and UI tests. Therefore, what we are seeing here is the result of the execution of each of these tests. Very well, let's see now all this, but executed from the IDE of a GeneXus KB. We are on the same travel agency knowledge base, and we can see that from the team development option, a new tab appears, continuous integration, that shows exactly the same definition of the pipelines that we had recently seen from the server. We can see the number of times it was executed, the status of each of those executions. We can see the changes that were generated. For example, in this case, we can see the detail of the commits. We see that 3 were executed. This means that the update of the knowledge base was carried out before doing the build. We can eliminate the pipeline. We can also execute it manually. We can go directly to the same Jenkins page that we had recently seen, where we'll see exactly the same information about the defined pipeline and the execution status of each of the steps. What's missing now? Create a new pipeline. And to that, we're going to go to this create option. We have to indicate exactly the same information that we've seen before, the KB version, the name of the pipeline that we're going to define, the environment that we're going to run, the frequency with which we want it to be executed, and the options, the actions that we want to define. At this point, we can decide about the options we have to run these pipelines in other environments. To do this, the first thing we must know is that GeneXus and GeneXus Server automatically create a pipeline that performs the build and deploy to cloud actions, even being able to offer a basic test environment for the deploy to cloud, which in itself solves a very important scenario. Now, this pipeline, automatically by GeneXus, contains calls to MS-build scripts that may be modified. This means that from the pipeline originally created by GeneXus, changes may be made and other scenarios may be solved. We could even do other tasks and use the Jenkins plugins and the full potential of Jenkins. Now, what if we don't have Jenkins? What options do we have, or what should we know if we want to use other servers? What we should know is that the Jenkins integration with MS-Build and GeneXus are also open source plugins. Therefore, in the same way that GeneXus was integrated with Jenkins, integration with other engines could occur in the future, or in fact, you can try to implement it by yourselves. So, to finish, and as a final conclusion, we would like to remind you of the importance of being able to automate, of being able to automatically integrate processes into the software development of an application. See how easy it is to work with the GeneXus IDE from the web console of a GeneXus Server instance, and of course, invite you to try it and apply it in your developments.